potential friends and adventurers. I'm M, and today we're going to talk about how to depict emotions when DMing. Welcome to the DM table. Emotion is a very important part of roleplaying, and whilst players rely on their own emotions frequently to, depict emotion when roleplaying, DMs need to depict emotions from varying sources of different characters, and so we're going to talk about how to depict these emotions, because sometimes when we're at an emotional peak of a campaign arc, we want to really focus on those emotions of our characters so that they are able to form a connection with the characters of our players. Firstly, let's concentrate on expressiveness of these characters. We want to describe facial expression. We want to describe body language. We want to, whilst not doing this overly in a long manner, we still want to mention how the person sort of looks like they are on the verge of something important and how they're gesturing that this is something that is happening to them. So you want to simply state whether the person has an expression of fear or respect or awe or love, but if something is brought as love is brought up, you need to sort of go in more detail, most likely. You want to state whether it's passionate or gentle and what kind of sort of roots are there in the emotion, whilst describing the facial expression and body language, so that we can all see in our mind what type of expression and emotion is the person depicting. Also, in order to do this, we can expand our descriptions. We can say things that are a bit more, how should I say, not backed up by evidence, not backed up by physical motion per se of the person, but you can describe to players their ability to sort of predict and read people's emotions. You can have a description that broadens this by saying the person looks like they're about to break into tears. Whilst this wasn't per se describing how the player knows this, it does describe sufficiently that the player knows this. So now we can build more from these descriptions that expand the perception of the player. We can say the person looks at another longingly. They skittishly draw on their sleeve. They humbly bow their head, and so on and so forth. This is how to expand the description of emotion, even if there isn't as much evidence to describe how they're doing this. It's a neat trick for when you either don't want to go into so much detail on how they're doing it, or your players might not even have that much experience, or you don't, or it's just pretty convenient. It'll work to convey without even doing anything much else. But we will do some other things indeed. We want to expand further by referencing where do these emotions come from. You can say something along the lines of, it is an expression that brings you back to that day where it all started, and a similar look in the eyes of the person describes quite vividly that you both remember what happened, and so on and so forth. Because here you can insert more definition, more information, more description, more reason why the emotion is happening and how it is happening. You can draw on all kinds of bits and pieces. You can sort of have more backstory to emotions just by having more description for emotions. And as long as you don't, go overboard on over-explaining it and use it sparingly when really emotional moments are up, then it'll be a good addition instead of bogging down the play. And you don't want to necessarily just do this out of the blue. It'll be probably fine, but Best if there's some lead up to it. If you give hints here or there that something is building up. Like the person is walking along with you silently, seemingly with something in mind, and in quiet contemplation. And in such way, you can one line drop that there is going to be something later about this, so that emotions don't look like something burst into a unskippable animation all of a sudden or something like that, as opposed to them building up naturally and sort of being a pinnacle, a result of all the things that happened during the day. And so you can make some foreshadowings here and there, and you'll have that, and then it won't seem so abrupt. Further on, we want to understand that we shouldn't just use these for tear-jerking, heartbreaking, or very heavy emotional moments. We want to use these for any kind of very emotional moment or pinnacle or peak of an arc or something like that. Any sort of thing that you could consider very memorable for a campaign. It can be rewarding moments like laughter and joy and celebration and doing something nice, and anything that really culminates with some sort of emotional, memorable thing for players that you think would do well in your campaign. You can do this, and then it'll be useful for all those occasions. You could just actually have really good span of emotions that players can feel very rewarded by when they run into them from your characters, and so your campaign gets to feel more alive on all angles, and emotion won't be therefore something that will be avoided by players because it only leads to negative type of drama. Maybe they'll even loosen up further and do more of their own emotions out in public. And don't forget, this will lead to some back and forth, so don't feel like needing to prepare too much and pre-script most of these things, because aside from the original part that you predicted, you'll need to do some back and forth of conversation, emotional conversation with your players through your characters, because this will now probably be played together and it'll go back and forth between you and them, and these will be some of the best events if done careful. So try to integrate this into how people speak when it's important, so that you get a good hang of it for when players get to engage you in more emotional discourse. And that's it. That's the whole skill for the beginning at the very least. There's more to it, like inner motivations and such, but we have that in a different episode. So if you thought this was unique adventure, maybe you can spare a click, and I could see you here next and every week. I wish you luck on your adventures and hope you visit again. Bye.